So here we go with the 1168 Q&A portion of the Rewind. Let's go and get straight into it. These are comments from the 1167 Q&A Rewind portion, and all four comments are from Matakoya. While there aren't many, there are a few female grunt soldiers. This is where I was talking about I opened the Rewind last time, just talking about the big picture gender politics and how we see women and men and everything, and how. And he raises a good point. I didn't remember any grunts. Why am I wearing this? I didn't remember any female grunts at all. He says there are a few. Plus, Nami's mother was a grunt, right? She wasn't an officer. Now, some could be like non-commissioned officers. The implication being they can't be on the front lines just fighting. The waves of troops hitting each other. There can't be any women in that group. I don't like, for instance, the non-commissioned officer. You have a 6 or 8, 10 people in front of them, and they're right back there giving orders. Now they will fight, obviously, because they're. You just need somebody to get through the line, and they have to fight. But they're not on the front line, right? They're not on the waves crashing against each other. But apparently we've spotted some women here and there, and some of these could be ambiguous. You can take it either way. Like, just because somebody has short hair doesn't mean they're a dude. Just because they're ugly doesn't mean they're a dude. Just because they're pretty, it doesn't mean they're a woman. So some of these could be the other way than it looks. So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, but there's not that many. So which makes sense because that's kind of the way our world is constructed as well. We know that the main Marine ship that pursued Doflamingo was headed by Tsuru, who is now an old Marine advisor, and she had a whole ship made up solely of female soldiers. Well, that kind of plays into what I'm talking about here, which is, it's kind of like, yeah, we'll let black people in our army, but they have to be their own unit with just all black people. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I don't know. This feels like some WNBA shit instead of just having the female athletes join the NBA, which I don't think that would actually work. I'm just saying this is kind of like what this is. So I don't really count that. I'm talking about the integrated military unit. We also have individuals like Nami's adoptive mother, who was a Marine and rescued Nami and the sister from the battlefield. I don't remember that. Like, maybe they just showed her as just a grunt, which is fine. Like, I'm assuming she was a non-commissioned officer, but she could have been just a grunt. There's a non-zero amount of evidence here, is what we're saying. There are also two examples I can think of off the top of my head. Those are two examples I can think of off the top of my head. But yeah, mostly men, grunts, and some female officers and hires up. Yeah, that's just kind of what I'm observing here. Some of the giant children have horns, and the adults. So being negative toward this was the question of why would somebody wear a hat that has horns on it when their boss, their king, ripped the horns from his head? You would think, okay, we're all anti-horn now, right? Why wear a hat that has horns on it? That's what I questioned. So being negative towards the horns would just be complaining about something they're born with. Also, yeah, it'd be a hostile workplace, hostile home, hostile school environment. Like, if you're not allowed to simulate horns that are part of your heritage, you're creating a hostile space for the people who actually have horns and can't help it and don't want to rip them out, right? So, one king's choice shouldn't necessarily dictate the entire atmosphere of the entire island. That does make sense. And saying you shouldn't wear a horn helmet would probably contribute to that, so I doubt they'd want to do that. I agree. I think you're right. This is a very good point. Even though the king clearly didn't like the horns. And was he making a political statement? I think so. We don't know. We don't know it. We don't know for sure. When a monarch does something, they're setting an example for the entire country. Can a president get a tattoo? I don't know if that's ever happened. American U.S. president. But a president of any country, I guess I could ask that question. There's not a president. What is in Japan? Is it prime minister? Emperor? Japan still has an emperor, right? Can the emperor get a tattoo? If he did, I mean, actually, tattoos are much more culturally acceptable in Asian countries anyway, so this is not the right question. Because the emperor probably does have tattoos, now that I think about it. But it's not as culturally acceptable in the United States. So can the president get a tattoo? I don't know that we've ever had a president who had a tattoo. George Bush Sr. was in the army, but he was a bomber pilot, right? And he flew a bunch of missions over Germany. Say what you want about George Bush Sr. and his party and all that shit, but he's a brave mother effer. Like, very few crews of bombers, that class of bomber, the Flying Fortress, very few crews completed all their missions. Like, it was a really big deal when a crew finally completed the 25 missions. Because it didn't happen. You got shot down. Or you lost part of your crew. Or you lost half your plane or something. Like, very few crews. So that was a brave-ass job. And I think in the military, a lot of times you get the military tattoos. Rather than speculate, let me just ask this. Here's a Reddit thread from a year ago. Has a president ever had a tattoo? Some people have alleged that Jackson had a tomahawk tattooed on his inner thigh, and Polk had a Chinese character, can't remember the placement, and that TR had his family crest on his chest. I have yet to see any convincing evidence that any of those men actually did have ink. I suppose it goes both ways, though. Nothing to definitively prove that they didn't. Wow. Then, of course, there's a bunch of jokes, because that's what people do on Reddit, instead of actually answering the goddamn question. Apparently, Teddy Roosevelt's confirmed. Jackson and Polk are speculated. Nothing here about George Bush. A lot of people in the military have tattoos. They get a tattoo. Like, it could be their company or their platoon, or in the Navy specifically, just like an anchor or something. Or, it's a very common thing. So any of the presidents who served, which was JFK served, he was in the Navy. George Bush Sr. served. He was in the Army during World War II. In the bombers, you would think the bombers, like, it's a crew of 10, 12 people are in the Flying Fortress. You think they would all get the same tattoo just as like a spirit decor thing. That's my speculation. But I'm getting into weeds. The point is, if President of the United States now could get a tattoo right here, of the American flag or something, right? And could normalize, although I think, I don't think anybody's walking down the street, God, look at that person with that tattoo. Like, it's not the way it was, like, even when I was growing up. When I was growing up, like, if you got a tattoo, you have designated yourself as, I'm part of this culture, this subset, this lower group of people in the United States. Like, that's one of the reasons I didn't get a tattoo as a kid. Because, like, you were proclaiming this is your social status for the rest of your life until culture changed, which it did in the 90s, I think. But you could proclaim if you're president, like, what you do matters. If you're the leader of any country, you can apply a little bit of a culture shift. Presidents never had a mohawk. They come out with a mohawk. Mohawks are going to be more acceptable, at least for his own people. His followers, his supporters, will be more likely to have a mohawk or accept people who do have mohawks if he has a mohawk or he has a tattoo, right? So, same logic here. Did he do it to make it more culturally acceptable to not have horns and to not glorify horns? He did it for a reason, and they said the reason was he didn't want to be associated with the giants that are scaring people. Now, there's another level to this. There's the effect on your own people, which hasn't really permeated because we got people with horns on their helmets, right? There's another comment here. The giant on the right in the castle doesn't appear to have real horns. So it does seem to be, that was another Monaco comment. It does seem to be a a helmet that has horns coming out of it. Because I was like, if you have horns, how are you going to stick the horns through each hole of the helmet? Because you put the helmet and you put it around, you stick the horn through the hole. You can't stick the other horn through the other hole because the helmet doesn't stretch, right? There's no way to put both horns through the helmet. So the helmet has to be fake horns. There's no way to fit your horns through both sides of the helmet. It's not a fabric. It is a rigid helmet. So you can't do it. It's impossible. So that's what I was questioning. So it appears to be a helmet with fake horns on it. He's simulating the ancestors because he doesn't have horns. You would think that'd be less culturally acceptable if your president, if your king has ripped his horns. It wasn't like he shaved his mustache. This man ripped the horns out of his goddamn head. He had horns and he doesn't have horns anymore. He has massive scars on his dome. Like, that is a big deal. It would hurt like hell, and you have scars for the rest of your life. Like, that is unbelievable, right? Like, that is a big deal. So, it should have a cultural impact. Not on everybody, clearly, because the guy's wearing a helmet. But here's the other level I was going to talk about. It also, you're putting the cultural impact out into the world. There are other countries who knew you had horns and now you don't. If nothing else, they see the scars. And here's a guy who wants to meet us halfway. Here's a guy who is rejecting the violent heritage of the past. And he wanted to open the country up. So I think this was step one in his strategy of opening up the country. I think it was more about people in other countries and less about people in his country. You can do what you want in this country. If you want to keep your horns, fine, whatever. If you want to wear a horn hat, whatever, I don't care. This is about me doing PR and diplomacy and manipulating other countries. That's what this is about. So, in that vein, considering that, then, it makes total sense. And that's what I think was going on, which is why I don't think he put any pressure on his own people not to have horns or not to wear horn hats specifically. So, yeah, that all makes sense. I think it all fits together. There are 20 originals. I couldn't remember the number. The number is 20. Okay. Maybe it'll lock into my brain this time. There were 20 original Celestial Dragon families, but Vivi's family stayed in Alabasta. So 19. Okay. So there's 19 families. With it being only 19 families, each family should be known through the world, right? Like, there's only 20 families. There's only 19. So that's not a lot. Like, yesterday I was having a conversation in the car. We were driving back from a gig. And there were 5 rich families in the United States 100 years ago, 150 years ago. I guess it was, it was around the 1910s and 20s 1910s, 20s, so about 105 years ago. There were 5 rich families that dominated the United States. Only one of them is still rich today. And you had like the Astors, the Van Belt, I think the Van Belts, and I don't remember the other 3 families. One of them is still rich today. One of them might have been the Fords. The Hiltons are still rich, but I don't think they got their money until after the 20s. So, but a lot of these families they were rich 100 years ago, and they were some of the richest people in the world. And they dominated American culture and American finance, and some of their shit was tied up in cars, which did or didn't succeed. The Edsel was one of the things that hurt Ford, I think. So, now, 100 years later, most of them don't have the money. But back then, everybody knew those 5 families. Everybody, if you were a Van Belt, I think it was because the Biltmore Estate here in North Carolina, they built that house. It was a massive mansion in the mountains here in North Carolina. The Biltmore Estate, but they were the Van Bilts, I think. But everybody in America knew the names of these 5 families. Now, this is 19, that's a little bit more. But I think most people in the world would know the names of at least some of the Celestial Dragon families. So if somebody comes rolling through here and he's got that same last name, they're going to look. Not that Shanks is going by that last name, but if it happens, if you're looking at his ID, his passport, whatever, if somehow he's doing some paperwork, he's buying something, he has to put his government ID on there. I mean, like, wait a minute. You're with the Celestial Dragons, huh? I don't know which situations that would happen, but, it could happen. By the way, speaking of which, let me go ahead and look up now what the hell Shanks' father looks like. Which elder is he? Oh, the last name is Garling. The first name? No, it's the Japanese do last name first. So it's Garling Fingerland. Okay. He is the one. Oh, this is I shouldn't be looking at this, actually. Shit. I really should not be looking at this. He used to be the Supreme Commander of the Knights of God, which explains why his son is now the Supreme Commander. They're really on some nepotism shit in this world. That's probably a spoiler. I regret looking at that. He doesn't ring a bell. Like, I'm looking at him. He's got this crazy ass hair. Yeah, okay, I guess there's one shot here where he's sitting in a chair. I remember that. He's got his arms folded, his legs crossed. Okay. But his crazy ass hair is just something I don't really remember that much from the anime, honestly. He's got like his hair, when you look at it from a certain point of view, looks like a moon that's in, like a half moon, you know? I was thinking he was the other dude with the long nose, but that's not the case. Okay, so this is who he is. Gotcha. All right. I should be able to remember that stupid ass hair from now on. I hope I didn't spoil myself. Like, I guess it's not like a big deal that we know that he was Supreme Creator of the Knights of God, but like, that's just one of those things that they reveal in their own time. But it really adds up. That's why his son has that spot, right? And maybe his son is the Supreme Commander, but he seems to have rank in the Knights of God. So that makes sense. All right, so that was the 1167 rewind. Let's go to 1168 reaction. And we got a lot of comments for that. Hunterstone, I have a very long comment detailing the Harley that I want you to read during your 1168 rewind or a separate video. Where do you want me to post it? Do you want me to post it in your... so this is just Hunter asking where to post it. And I told him to post it here, so I'll get into that in a second. That'll be the last thing I read. Let me do the Marakoye comments first. I do think it's worth reviewing the manga panel for the mural, which I did in a separate video. Given that the contrast of black and white actually helps, I agree. I thought you could see it better in the anime, and this is the first time I've ever seen a situation where the anime was worse for the visual depiction of something. Color actually detracted from the experience. I thought color would add to it, but they didn't really do color. They just made it beige, which doesn't really help anything. The contrast wasn't there. Wherein the colors are a lot more similar, I believe that it's at the end of chapter 1138. Yeah, I found it, and there should already be out a video about that. So I'm releasing both of these at the same time. This mural really stirred up the fandom, and everyone's going crazy for weeks. One of the guys I watched discussed it for 21 hours. Like, I mean, I don't know if there's much there, I'll be honest with you. Most of it we already knew. Most of it we could guess. There's a lot of implications. And, like, there's new shit. Don't get me wrong. There's stuff to talk about here. I talked about it. My breakdown of the mural was 20 minutes. And then I had a long Q&A with it from previous mini-pods. But... you know, what it implies, like, if my theories are correct, that some of it's very interesting and some of it we didn't know before, but, like, a lot of it, like, the robot is already come and gone, and he's in the mural. And who didn't know that Luffy's going to fight the government and take them out at the end of the story? We already knew that. This is confirmation of something that was obvious. Like, yeah, could Luffy lose and government stay in control and that's the end of the story? I guess. I don't believe it. Show me. I don't believe you can do. You're going to do that, author. You're like, yeah, we can suspend our disbelief, and when we're in the moment and we're excited, we're not really thinking about, okay, well, obviously Luffy's going to win. We're caught up in the moment. But sitting here in the cold light of day, in between episodes, we're just talking. Nobody thinks that he's not going to destroy the current world government. Like, come on. So. A lot of this, I think we knew, right? And we knew that there was a flood at some time in the past. And apparently that happened during the second event, the second world, whatever. So, one of the biggest revelations for me, if I had to pick one thing that, like, blew my mind, was something I had theorized for a long time, but I had no proof for, was the idea that we found the power of the devil fruits somewhere. Probably underground, because otherwise people would have stumbled. If it was on the top of a mountain, somebody would have found it. If it's in the middle of the woods, somebody would have found it thousands of years ago. But if we found it now, after thousands of years of civilization, it'd be like finding something in the 1800s. Dinosaur bones. We started finding dinosaur bones in the 1800s, something like that. They'd always been there, but if dinosaur bones had been sitting in the middle of the woods and been sitting in the Amazon River and been sitting in the middle of the desert, we would have known about dinosaurs for thousands of years. We didn't find out about dinosaurs until we started digging because that's where the shit was. That it was hidden until then because it's underground. So it's logical to assume that's where the devil fruit power was originally. I don't know if it was originally fruit, but whatever it is that manifested the power, digging it up, bringing it up to, or they show them bringing it up to the surface and using it in some way to enslave people, and then the sun god appeared, which you could characterize it as they're using this new magic to oppress us. Oh God, please save us. And if somebody shows up to save you, oh, God answered our prayers, which is the way it's put in the mural. But clearly what actually happened was a good guy got access to the same magic that the bad guys are using to oppress people, and it ain't no fun when the rabbit's got the gun. What goes around comes around. If we got guns, we all got guns, right? Good people can use guns too. So a good person found the magic to defeat the bad people's magic, right? Like that's what actually happened. And then we're going to wrap it in the cloak of religion and myth and children's stories and then metaphor, and it becomes we prayed for salvation, which I'm sure they did, but God didn't answer the damn prayers. There was a good person who got the magic answer their prayers. And so it's the rubber fruit became the fruit of liberation. For some reason, that's the one fruit that can do it, right? It is very powerful, but I think there's a lot of very powerful fruits out there. But the thing about this is, Luffy's fruit power is both the hammer and the scalpel. He could knock you the F out, but he can also surgically remove you from the picture as well. Some of these other powers are either one or the other. You can do one thing or the other. There's a power where a guy turns into an airplane, and he has the tattoos across his teeth, whoever the hell that is. You aren't saving the world with an airplane power. Propellers coming out of your head or whatever. You're not going to do it. I don't even think you can do it with electricity. Electricity is closer to being able to do it because you need versatility. You need to be able to do a lot of different shit. Like, look how versatile Daffy was with the threads. How many different things he could do with the threads. The more different things you can do, the better chances you are of toppling the government. You need to be able to do all kinds of shit. Okay, I can do this for this situation, this for that situation, this for that situation. The threads are pretty close to having the versatility to topple government. Rubber, there's so much shit we've seen him do. That has the versatility. Joy Boy's like part of that process, that level, Gear 5 or whatever that. I think he's Gear 5, right? That shit, you're hard to beat at that point. If you're hard to beat, you can topple a government. Because these people got powers too. They got magic too, right? So, not any fruit can do that, but it is curious that seems to be the one it was. And that's probably the one it was every time. Every time a Joy Boy came to be, the right kind of mentality of a person, and maybe the fruit picks a person, but the right kind of mentality of a person with the power, and there's an oppressive government in play, he can take them out, right? So there's that going on. But that getting a little bit of confirmation that's been my theory for a long time. I had a video about that a year or two ago when I was talking about devil fruits. And of course, my other idea, which is still in play, was a god was killed, and they dismembered him, and each fruit power is some part of his body, a finger, an organ, or part of his skin or something. Like it's separated into 1,000 pieces that all became fruits. They dismembered the body, the immortal body of the god. The god, take communion in a way. Take upon yourself my body and my blood, right? A communion kind of thing. If you want to get back to religion, and that's how they got the powers. And there could be an immortal, unrotting, never decay god body buried underground that people discovered, and they took pieces of it, brought it to the surface, and realized they could turn it into magic. That's still in play. Probably less likely because we would have seen a body in the mural, most likely. And these are just pieces of fire. So that theory is probably wrong, but I was in the ballpark. I was, there's something they discovered that they then turned into magic, right? We didn't always have magic. That's always been my assumption. So, how much does the mural matter? I mean, it's fun, and that's the goal here. We're just trying to have fun. So if it's fun to talk about it for 21 hours, talk about it for 21 hours. Look, I'm just went off on another rant about this shit. So there's plenty to talk about, and it's fun, and that's what we're here for. We're here to have fun. That's the whole point, and I'm not trying to gatekeep anybody's fun. I will say there's probably less there than first appears when you first see it. Just like the Lost map, the map in Lost, there wasn't actually much to it. It was exciting in the moment. It's the first real map we'd ever gotten of the island and of the other hatches. And at the time, we only knew about the one hatch, and the idea there's so many other hatches is very exciting. And Cerebus, the name Cerebus appearing here, that's the name for the smoke monster and all that shit. Exciting stuff. And the shit written in different languages. And the day after the episode aired, the people who ran Lost 2005 put on the internet, on their website, a high resolution photo of the entire map. Where when you see it in the show, it's kind of like an angle. He's down here, he's over here. They had somebody standing right in front of the map, took a high resolution photograph of it, processed that, and put that shit online for people to download and look at and pour over. Because they knew people would want to. They knew how to cater to their fans. I'm surprised One Piece didn't do this. Now I guess you pretty much have it anyway, because it's the last page, probably a double page of the issue, because it said to be continued at the bottom. So it's probably a double page last, and so that's might as well be the high resolution photo I'm talking about. It doesn't get any better than that. So you already have it, so you can just pour over it. You can look at it, you get the magnifying glass and on your paper and all that stuff, and there's plenty to look at there. But personally, I don't know if there's like a shit ton there that we didn't already know. But there's a lot of theory crafting fodder there, right? Like you could take it so many different directions. And there's like a shit ton of Reddit posts about it and all that stuff. So, yeah, I do believe fans went nuts. And it is exciting and it's interesting. I'm not trying to shit on it. Hopefully you get what I'm saying here. I'm saying, as revelations go, this isn't that high up. We didn't learn a whole lot, but like there's a lot of interesting shit there, especially if you're the kind of fan I am, which likes to theory craft and really look at the nuance and details and stuff. But 21 hours seems excessive, so I guess I'll leave it at that. The last Matakoye comment. Aeroplane. That's all he said. Aeroplane. Oh my god. Alright, this is Hunter Stone's comment. It's going to be really long. I'm not going to read it all, obviously. That nobody wants to sit here and listen to me read for 10 minutes. But go check it out. This is the 1168 reaction. This is the reaction to the episode that has the mural. Massive comment. I'm now going to read the entire comment, and then I'll address pieces of it that strike my fancy here. So I've already done, knowing this, I've already done my video breakdown of it, the mini pod that breaks down. So I've already put my thoughts out there. So this isn't going to pollute or influence my current thoughts. We'll see if he sends me in a new direction. But let's go ahead and read the comment, and then I'll come back. Okay, here's a summary. He said, I'm going to pick it up where he says, I'm going to give you some contextual information you may or may not know for you to better grasp the Harley before we start. So this is 4 numbered bullet points of contextual information about the Harley. So, number 1, as far back as the Little Garden Arc, the Giants were calling the Red Line the Great Serpent Soaked in Blood. Well, that's interesting. The Red Line is a Great Serpent Soaked in Blood. So you think that I was talking about the bodies of immortal gods. Do we think that the Red Line is the undying, undecaying, not rotting body of a dead serpent from thousands of years ago? Metaphorically, maybe. Maybe literally, but probably metaphorically. That's the Norse word for the great serpent from Ragnarok. That's kind of interesting. I can't pronounce it, obviously, as you just heard. He is a Norse mythological creature. Is he the one that's dropping the venom on Loki in the center of the earth? At some point, Loki gets chained to a stone, and there is a serpent above him dropping venom on him. And his wife has a bowl that she catches the venom in. But sooner or later, the bowl gets full. So she has to leave to go dump the bowl out. The venom starts hitting Loki. He thrashes out in pain, which kind of we've seen in this episode and recent episodes, where he's being tortured while being chained to a rock. So, it's just, we just don't have the serpent and the wife. And his motions cause earthquakes. So, in Norse mythology, when you felt an earthquake, Loki's wife had gone to dump out the venom. And then she comes back, she starts collecting venom again, and he stops thrashing, and we don't have the earthquake anymore. Is that this I'm going to call him Jom, for Jom. Is that Jom, or is it a different serpent? And I do know that one of these serpents was coiled around the earth. This could be a different mythology. And when he moved, that caused earthquakes. There was a lot of, why do we have earthquakes myths back in the day, right? Thousands of years ago. He's large enough to wrap around the entire world. So that's the one who's wrapped around the entire world. And bite his own tail. Many in the community believe the red line may have been artificially created or have been a creature. Yeah, he could be the undying, undecaying body of a god, right? A dead god. There's a lot of myth where, if you kill a god, the body just stays there. He doesn't rot away because he's a god, right? And then you can do things with him. I even wrote a story about that called the God Hand, where they found his hand that didn't decay and it had magic powers. So it could be a body. I think it's probably metaphor. So the myths are more interesting when they're metaphor than if they're just literal, right? I think it's probably metaphor, but we'll see. Number 2. In episode 187, 4 gods were introduced. These gods were the sun god, the forest god, the earth god, and the rain god, which I think in this mural was like the storm god or the... let me actually... I've got the mural right here. Let me see. The forest god tamed demons, and the sun spread the fires of war. The sea god. So in the mural it's called the sea god. Here it's called the rain god. So I speculated, you'll see this in my breakdown of the mural, that Black Hoodie was both the forest god and the earth god. Because the earth god is in the first extinction. And then the forest god is in the second extinction. You see me saying it's possible they're different entities, which of course it is possible because they have different names. But it's also possible for one entity to have multiple names through different cycles of civilization. That's my theory. The Black Hoodie was once the earth god. Then he was the forest god. And now he's, what would he be? The throne god, maybe? We'll have a name for him at some point. The black god, he could have different names as he manifests different powers and if he's eternal. Now, there's a lot of speculation he's just somebody, because there's a painting that he's obsessed with. He's only about 1,000 years old. See, what I'm talking about, this man would be 10,000 years old or more, right? He's been through every cycle of civilization. And he's had many names, and people have called him different things, not realizing it's just the same entity every time. Now, there is textual evidence that seems to imply he's not that old. Because now just looking at a painting doesn't mean he's obsessed with painting. It doesn't mean he knew that person. But it implies it, right? So there is implied textual information that he's not as old as I think. So it's just a theory. It's just a theory. That's what it is. It could be wrong. But that's one working theory I have going on in my brain. If there are different entities, I'm not sure what they would be. People with different fruit powers, I guess. The sea god could be the white beard power, because he could create tsunamis, right? The earth god could be the dude, the pirate who made the building on the pirate island. So he made the building with the bandana and everything. Or he could be the dude from Dressrosa, who was the entire island. I think that makes more sense. Whatever the hell his name was, he was all the stone on the island, right? Like I think he had the power over stone, but that's Earth, right? Either one of those could be the Earth god. The Forest god could be Tree Bitch, that power. You have power over the trees. There could either be fruit powers where you can manipulate water. We know somebody can freeze water. I don't know if you've ever seen a power where somebody could just manipulate water, a water bender. Let me put the water in a circle and throw it at you. I don't know if we have anybody that has that power, but we definitely know about people who can freeze water for sure. And I'm sure there is a water bending power out there that could be the rain god, you know. And the rain god could be even different than the sea god, right? But yeah, so the four that were introduced back in 187 were the sun god, the forest god, the earth god, and the rain god. Okay. Emu, lightning villain, cover story is one of the things the theory community talks about a lot. There is some pretty decent connections that can be made to the Harley. Well, here's the thing. Like, I've already talked about this. I'm not saying it's not literal, but my interpretation of the mural is everything is metaphor. So if they talk about a moon, they're not talking about a moon. If they talk about the sun, they're not talking about the sun. If they talk about the earth, they're not talking about the earth. If they talk about the sea, they're not talking about the sea. If they talk about fire, they're not talking about a literal ball of fire you pulled out of the earth, right? You know, fire is power. Fire is devastation. Fire is magic, you know, if you're backwards enough civilization. So, we already know that the sun god is the joy boy fruit power, the rubber fruit power. We know that, okay? We can intuit from that the earth god and the forest god are probably fruit powers. So, why would the moon be literal if the sun is metaphor? And I talked about this before. I don't think the moon is literal. So, because he's on the literal moon, that means nothing as far as this goes, right? It's a metaphor. What I can't figure out, what the hell is the moon a metaphor for? The sun is a metaphor for Joy Boy, right? Earth God is probably a metaphor for some kind of earth power, you know, earth bending, or, you know, the pillar, whatever his name was, that could, you know, create an entire building out of stone, and he was the building. Or the one who made I think Pilar was the entire island. The other one was just one building on Pirate Island, right? And then you could say Thunder God for Emu, for the power of electricity. What the hell is the moon a metaphor for? Shit, I think, well, there's the menstrual cycle. So could the moon be a metaphor for women? A powerful woman, a half moon. So a teenage woman or a child woman. Big Mom was a child when she destroyed, you know, that town and that king or whatever in Elbath. She was a powerful child woman. Could a half moon be half of a woman? Possibly. There is a lot of associations with moon and women. That's a decent working theory. I don't want to look up mythological metaphors through history for the moon. I feel like that's cheating. You know, I mean, especially if I get there and they talk about, oh, in One Piece reference the moon, and then you're spoiled, right? Like, I don't want to risk that. But I feel like I'm missing something with this half moon thing. I don't think it's a literal moon. There's no part of me that believes they're literally talking about the moon. He's on the literal moon, so who gives a shit what he's doing, right? To me, that's a non-starter. I don't care. I understand a lot of fans are taking it more literally, so it's exciting, and it feels like a connection. I think it's a false connection. I think it's a red herring. The moon is a metaphor. They're not talking about any real moon that any person's actually standing on. That's my take on it. All right, number 4. There are 2 important trees in the One Piece world. The Atom Tree, which we just learned is on Elbath, which, by the way, was referenced all the way back in episode 5. Because when I was trying to watch it to see Buggy, somebody mentioned an Atom Tree in that episode. It blew my mind. I couldn't believe it. There's also the Eve Tree. Oh, shit. We don't fully know its location, but we do know that through the tree roots, Fishman Island is able to have sunlight and air. So that could be. Yeah, the Eve tree is where Fishman Island is, and that's how they get sunlight and air down there. That's pretty damn powerful. And then we got the Adam tree here. Ooh, the first 2 trees in the world. Here's a question. If you dig at the sites of either one of these trees, do you find the original devil fruit magic? Is that where they... Because they dug somewhere on the planet, right? Somewhere on the planet they dug down and they found magic. Is it... Are the Adam tree and the Eve tree the source of that magic? Is that why they're magical trees? Those are the 2 hotspots in the world where you can find the original recipe, the original devil fruit magic, whatever the hell it is, the body of a god, meteorite that hit the earth that's an alien technology, whatever, nanobites, if we're going to mix science and magic, which we know Vegapunk would want to do. Are those the spots where they originally dug to find the magic? The fire. Prometheus, right? That's another thing, too, by the way. Did you know what Prometheus' punishment was? Prometheus' punishment was he was chained to a rock. And vultures would pick out his eyes. That was his punishment for giving humanity fire. He gave humanity the technology to develop, and, ever since that fire started our entire technological development to this day, right? His punishment for giving the small fries magic that allowed them to stand toe-to-toe with the gods was he was chained to a rock. Loki is chained to a rock. Now, Loki's only 63 years old, so he didn't give the power to anybody, but it's an interesting metaphorical connection. It's an echo, right? Is there a Prometheus somewhere chained to a rock? If Loki had been in the first half of the story, we could say that the second half of the story is we find Prometheus. But Loki's in the second half of the story, so we can't do that. But is there a Prometheus still chained to a rock somewhere? Because he gave humanity the power of the devil fruits. He told them where to go and what to do with it. Maybe. It's possible. Alright, the text. Since I don't know the translation they will be using in the episode, I'll be using the official Viz manga translation. This should be interesting. I'm going to put my copy of the mural with this and just compare, see if there's any differences. The first world, this is most likely pre-Void Century. Yeah, that would be my guess too. For me, my personal interpretation is the Void Century happens after the second world. It's between the second world and the third world. It doesn't happen during the second world. It happens after the second world. That's just my personal interpretation. Within the earth there was fire. Within the earth there was fire, which is probably used as a natural resource energy. Vegapunk Lilith, early in the Egghead arc, said she was experimenting using fire as an energy source. There is a theory I heard recently that I like, where hell is real, and it's in the middle of the world. And in the mural, that's where the people of the elevator are receiving these balls of fire. To give more evidence to the bottom of the mural is covered in flames. That is interesting. But to me, my interpretation is all this fire shit is metaphor. It's not a literal fire. It's metaphor fire. Yeah, the flames are at the bottom. People interpret it as fire. But remember, when I say that, what was I just talking about? Prometheus. Prometheus gave fire to the barbarians. Yeah, it was literal fire, but the metaphor of the Prometheus story is he gave them the knowledge to start advancing technologically. Because if you have fire, you can start cooking shit. The food lasts longer. You have light. You have warmth. You don't die of exposure living out in the wild huddled against each other, right? So you have warmth. You have light at nighttime so that you can think and you can do shit at night. You can do more work at night, which means you're more productive. You get more shit done. And you know what caused the evolution of technology? Time. People had time to sit down and think, shit, wait a minute. If I attach this rock to this wood, I've got a better weapon than just a rock by itself or a wood by itself. You don't have time to think of that if you're busting your ass all day and then you're shivering to sleep every night and you don't have any light to work with. So half the day you're just basically huddled together, freezing and shivering. You don't have time to think about attaching a rock to a stick. Fire gives you time. And with time, gives you technology. So yes, Prometheus gave them literal fire, but what he really gave them was knowledge. So it was the knowledge to advance. He gave them time, which became knowledge. It was the time and knowledge to advance technology to grow your civilization to where you can stand toe to toe against the gods. And that's why the gods were pissed off. The second he gave them fire, they knew what that meant. That's why he got punished. Chained to that rock. Fire is knowledge, right? It's a metaphor. And I think it's a metaphor here. Well, I think everything in this mural is metaphor. I don't think you can take anything here literally, right? So, I don't think they were given literal fire. I don't think it is a literal fire. Although I do like the idea of a hell in the center of the earth. I don't know how much he's going to tap into Christian or Western religion and myth, but he's tapping to shit all over the world. Like, he's not Norwegian. He's not from Scandinavia, and he's talking about Norse mythology. So I don't think he has any problem using Christian mythology in heaven and hell. He's already got the angels and the seraphims and shit, so he's already tapped into that a little bit. We've got, I think we don't necessarily have halos. I think one of these people on one of these murals has a halo. On this mural has a halo. But we've got a little bit of angel symbology here, so it wouldn't shock me if we end up having a hell that's in the center of the earth. And that could be where the source of the devil fruit magic is. Okay, mankind succumbed to greed and touched the forbidden sun. I think this is pretty self-explanatory if you consider that the forbidden sun might be the fire energy mother flame. Yeah, now we do have the mother flame thing happening. The mother flame thing is interesting. It is a power source. I don't know. I mean, we could just be talking about they pulled the mother flame from the earth, I guess. I mean, it doesn't work for me as well because it's literal instead of metaphorical. But there is the mother flame to consider. I'd forgotten about the mother flame. I don't know. Well, let me table that for now, but that is an interesting point. The enslaved prayed, and then the sun god appeared. This is probably the origin of the sun god Nikki. Yeah, Nika. The earth god raged, and the serpent of hellfire, and with its serpent of hellfire, shrouded the world in death and darkness. This text started the conversation who in the current time these gods could be. If Luffy is the current sun god, could the other important people like Emu or Blackbeard have the god devil fruit? The god devil fruit. Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. The community believes that this is the serpent of hellfire is a red line, and in the mural, the huge creature on the left is a serpent of hellfire red line. Well, he's definitely the left? I thought it was the right. Oh, you know what? Shit. There's a slight misinterpretation here. Yeah. In my mural breakdown video, I said you go straight down. So you only consider the text. You only consider the imagery that's below the text, okay? And you know what I did? I actually violated that because you have the earth god underneath the first book. And then there's this creature with wings breathing fire underneath the second book. And I thought that was the sun god fighting the earth god serpent, right? But that can't be what's going on because you go straight down. Yeah, I screwed that up. What's actually happening here, you're right. I didn't consider that. I misinterpreted it. The serpent is just a serpent, and underneath the first book is just a serpent, okay? Underneath the second book, who is the thing with the wings that is also breathing fire? Probably this. Would that be the forest god? He tamed demons. Yeah, maybe he's a forest god. Yeah, okay. It doesn't really affect most of what I said, but I did violate my thing where you have to go straight down. You can't cross over to the left or right? So, yeah, because they were both breathing fire at each other. I thought they were at war with each other, but again, we're talking about metaphor here, right? And it's a blended drawing. It would have been much more clear if there were three separate drawings that were sliced and you're looking at each one individually. But it's blended, so that was a little confusing. Okay, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned this. That cleared that up for me. So you're saying the creature on the left is a serpent of hellfire red line, but that's under the second book. my interpretation is only the only images that apply to the text are the ones that are right under the text. So the earth god, the serpent is the creature on the right that's coming up behind the buildings and has some kind of rope or something in the middle of his body. That to me looks like a serpent. Right? Now, of course, serpent could also be dragon. The one on the left does look like a dragon. So that is also an appropriate interpretation. My theory is you can only use the images that go straight down from the book. That being the case, the serpent with the hellfire is on the right, and he's breathing the hellfire. The thing in the middle is probably the forest god. He's taming demons with fire. That's my interpretation. And they will never meet. I have not seen one unified or great theory on what this means. It's highly likely that Luffy is one of the parties, but you can't be for sure. Yeah, they will never meet is extremely intriguing, and they will never meet. I just don't think we have enough information yet, but I'm going to sleep on that one, because that is very intriguing. Okay, the second world. This is during the Void Century. Yeah, I disagree. I think the Void Century happens after whatever all the shit that takes place in the second world. Within the void there was breath. Now there is the fact that they use the word void, but that could be a red herring. I mean, look, I'm saying it's a valid interpretation. If you want to interpret that this second book, the second passage, is what happened during the Void Century, that is a perfectly legitimate reading of the text. I don't believe that that's what's happening. But I'm not saying you're a moron if you believe that, right? I just want to make that clear. I think it's a perfectly valid reading of the text. And it has the word void in it, which is a little hard to avoid. But within the void there was breath. What I took that to mean within the void there was breath was there was no civilization left, right? The first world, the events of the first world destroyed civilization. And by the way, my interpretation, if you haven't seen the breakdown video, first world, government. Second world, government. Third world, government, right? Not literal world. So if the first world government has collapsed, there's no civilization. What I took the first line to mean is within the void there was breath. In other words, civilization started to regrow. It started, the breath of life, we're coming back up out of the ashes. We have created a new civilization with a new government from the ashes of the old. And that's what the void being, there being no government, now there is a government. That's what I interpret the first line to mean. Then, after we get a new civilization, the forest god tamed the demons and the sun spread. Well, that's still part of this. So the forest god seems to be a good guy, actually. The forest god tamed the demons, and the sun spread the fires. Oh, no, then the sun spread the fires of war, so he could be a bad guy. That's how I originally interpreted him. He was bad. I'm starting to see how you can talk about this for 21 hours. There's so many different permutations to this. I'm starting to see how you can talk about it for 21 hours. I am. Because some of this, like, I think I misunderstood it, and then I realized I didn't misunderstand it. So you got to read. You can't just go line by line. You have to look at the whole thing, but then you go line by line, but then you got to look at the whole thing. You got to keep going back and forth to make sure you're getting context correct, right? The forest god tamed demons, and the sun spread the fires of war. I think this is the origin of the devil fruits. So you think the devil fruits came during the second civilization? I'm thinking they came in the first. That's what they're pulling up from the ground. Okay. I think you got really close with your theory that a god was killed and his parts were spread through the world creating devil fruits. This line also works well with my hell theory. The sun in this line could have two different meanings. The first meaning is that Joy Boy became a pirate and started conflict. The second meaning could be talking about the mother flame, fire energy that was used in this ancient civilization, causing resource wars between factions. Yeah. And another thing I've talked about is the duality of meaning and words and all that stuff. So the god of destruction could just mean the destruction of the world government, and that's it. So, god of destruction. Oh my God, he's so horrible, he's mean. If you're part of the government, he is. If you're part of the government, he's horrible and mean. But if you're a citizen who's being oppressed by the government, he's a god of liberation. At the same time, the same action. He is liberating the small people, and he's destroying the government that are oppressing the small people. Same action, two different interpretations of the same shit. which is what I think is happening here. So, spreading the fires of war could be just, yeah, if the government is in power and they're oppressing the people and you fight against them, they're going to say you're starting wars. You're a dick. Look at you, insurgent, terrorist, evil person, pirate. When you're just trying to save the people that are being oppressed, right? So it could be the same damn thing. Like, it doesn't have to be a bad context to start a war. It's good to start a war if they have concentration camps and they're killing people. It's good to start a war. Everything is about context. People could be like, you never start a war ever for any reason. Yeah, but what if they're killing people? Hundreds of people, millions of people. Do you start a war then? Right? What if they're oppressing people, working them to death, separating families, which this government could have been. We don't know, but I'm just saying hypothetically. If the government is oppressing the people and you fight them, yeah, you're a dick who started a war. So the sun spreads the fires of war could be from the interpretation of the government. Here's the thing. Who made this mural? Children, supposedly. Who is teaching the children? Are they pro-government or anti-government? What side are they on? They seem to be fairly neutral, but it depends on the metaphor, right? How they characterize something. Your demon is my savior. So just food for thought there, right? Like, he may not necessarily have to be a pirate or a dickhead to be starting war, is what I'm saying. Here's what I'm most interested in hearing about, because I don't have a theory about the half moon, so I'm curious what other people think. I have a theory for everything else. Those of the half moon dreamed. Those of the half moon. Those of the half moon. Is that what that says here too? Yeah, those of the half moon dreamed. No. Those of the half moon dreamed, and then those of the moon dreamed. It's said twice. Those of the half moon dreamed, and those of the moon dreamed. The only thing I can come up with is women, but I don't know if that really fits. Let's see what they think. This may or may not confirm that the Willow D is supposed to represent a half moon. Oh, really? Only in English. What is the symbol for D in Japanese? What does it look like? I know that he uses the D in English. He uses the English letter, but that's still a weird choice. If you're, I know most people in Japan speak English. It's still a weird choice. It'd be like doing Harry Potter and Voldemort's name, the first letter of his name looks like a snake in Egyptian language, right? So if you speak Egyptian, you see the first letter of his name, you know he's Voldemort, like Thomas Riddle, right? Like, say the T in Thomas looks like a snake in Egyptian. So, if you speak Egyptian, you immediately know he's Voldemort, right? Because he has a snake at the beginning of his name. But if you speak any other language in the world, it doesn't work. So, I wonder if he would do English letter D to mean a half moon, because it only makes sense in English. I mean, you could, because that would hide it from your Japanese audience. They may think about what their letters look like, and symbolically, what imagery it looks like, and not necessarily think about what a foreign language letter looks like. Possibly. I'm not convinced, but it is possible. It's an interesting theory. I had not heard that. That is interesting. It never occurred to me. The D may also still be the first letter in a word. Those of the moon dreamed. The people of the moon could be two different groups of people. There seem to be, because you distinguish it with two different sentences, right? Those are the half moon and those are the moon. I think if we can figure out what the hell the moon is, what the metaphor of the moon is, we can unlock this entire thing. That's what we're missing, I think. They could be the world government. They're in opposition to the half moon people, Willow D people. They each had a different idea dream of how the world was supposed to be run. In the Inru cover story, it was revealed that the Skypeans and most likely the Lunarians came from the moon, so this could be talking about them as well. Maybe. I still don't believe they're talking about a literal moon. I think it's metaphor, but it is interesting. There's two different groups of people that lived on the moon and came to Earth, and there are two different kinds of moon people talked about in this passage. That is interesting. I can't deny that. Half moon and full moon. Yeah, I'm going to have to cook on that. I still have nothing. That's the most intriguing part. If we can figure out what the hell the metaphor is, I think we can unlock the entire thing. And they will never meet. History repeating itself. Right. That's an interesting take on that. The third world, considered to be in the near future, and currently happening, by the way, because we see the robot in the mural, and that's already passed. We've already done that. So, not just the near future, right now. Which is so funny too, because I've already talked about this, but in my reaction, in episode 1168, they said it. They literally said, Saul said, this, people think they're talking about now and in the near future. And then I get to my, several days later, I get to my rewind. Hey, you know what? I think they might be talking about now in the near future. As if I'd come up with some brilliant idea. You know, I don't think I ever saw it, that statement. I missed it because I was doing a reaction. That's why I do rewinds. But I'm a dumbass. Like, you guys must have been rolling your eyes during that part of it. Like, hopefully I didn't go on too long about it. Within chaos or its emptiness, the emptiness may mean that the world government is still in charge. Within chaos or its emptiness. Empty of hope. Empty of dreams. Yeah, I mean, you know, that's pretty vague, but I think we can all come pretty close to an interpretation. You know, things suck right now, I think is what that essentially means. The inconvenient remnants recall the promised day and hear the voices of the half moon. The coming of the dawn and the talk of the promised day has been talked about quite a bit in the series. Most likely the people of the D join up to defeat the world government on the promised day. Which is interesting. If we look at who the people of the D are we saying Blackbeard is going to help topple the government? Probably. He's still not a good person. He's still going to be a problem for us. But he doesn't seem to like the government very much, so he's going to be helpful. Garp helped the government more than we'll ever know. So he's not on our side. Even if he joins our side now, he's done so much damage as a running dog, a lap dog, a boot licker, lick spittle for the government for 20, 30 years. So, net negative. No matter what he contributes towards the end, he did more harm than good. So, F him. So, he's not, that's a D who's not on our side against the government. Those are the ones I remember. So, the sun god dances and laughs, guiding the world to its end. Luffy wins and ends the third world, guiding the world government to its end. I'm inserting the word government there. Same thing. The sun returns and brings a new morning. Luffy brings about the fourth world. The fourth government, the fourth world government, which hopefully this time will be a democracy. You know, I mean, a representative democracy, should we say? There's different kinds of democracies. A representative democracy would be the best. But you can't really trust a good monarch. Like, for instance, Vivi is a good monarch. I think her dad's still alive, but, you know, he's a good monarch, she's a good monarch. We can't promise her grandchildren are going to be good monarchs. That's why monarchy sucks. That's why you need a democracy. They may elect a stupid leader, but hopefully they can also remove a stupid leader. Or evil. Even worse, right? And they will surely meet. The cycle of them not meeting ends. Whatever the hell they are. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is a very interesting interpretation of the text. Now he's going to talk about the mural. I will be starting right to left on the mural. In the mural, it shows human beings being shown as slaves. So the question is, who were the enslavers? To the left of the elevator moving up, we see a winged angel-like figure. Almost all of it, almost as if it supervised them. I guess that would be the enslaver, right? Somebody with the fruit power, essentially. This could be the Lunarians or Skypians. They do have wings and they can fly without magic, I guess. Yeah. The Lunarians, their abilities are not fruit-based, right? I keep talking about I want to see magic that's not fruit-based. I think this is an example of magic that's not fruit-based, right? They're hard to beat, invulnerable, but it's not because of a fruit. That's very interesting, actually, now that I think about it. From the Emu cover story, we know that they colonized the moon. In addition, if you look in between the first and second world books, you can see 2 planets. Let me see that. Ooh, really? So, are you talking about this big thing that looks like the sun in the center? Or you're talking about those 2 objects above that big ass sun? So you think those are planets? The one on the top looks like the snake. He has see the snake here in the lower right hand corner? See that thing on him? It looks like a snake head. It doesn't look like a planet. He's got the same ridges as the snake below, which tells me that's a snake, not a planet. The other one possibly could be the planet. So you got a snake. Maybe that suggests the snake's about to eat the moon, which we've seen in mythology, snakes eat moons. I guess if I'm going to do this for a period of time, maybe you want to see my face. I don't know why you would, but maybe you would. So rather than see my shoulder, you know. Anyway, there's been mythologies of a snake eating the moon. I don't remember the context. I don't remember which mythology it was. But there have been mythologies of snake eating the moon. That's a snake above a moon. That could be a moon, but the moon, I guess it could be craters on the moon. I was thinking maybe clouds, but those could be craters on the moon, so that could be the moon, and this could be the planet. I thought it was a sun, but this could just be the planet with the moon, and then a snake wants to eat the moon, something like that. Okay, but you're saying there are two planets. Okay. I'm not here to push back on your theories. I'm just clarifying what I think I see. The designs of those planets are the exact same as design on the Hellfire Serpent. Yeah, that's the design I was talking about. You're saying on both of them? The designs of the planets are the exact same design as the Hellfire Serpent. Wait, is there... Am I looking at the same two planets here? Because to me, the top one definitely has the design. It makes it just look like it's a snake. The bottom one, what the hell are you still talking about? That does not look like a serpent. Anything that's on the serpent. It looks like puppy dog feet, clouds, or craters. It does not look like the design of the serpent. So it may have came from those planets along with the Lunarians and Skyperians. So you're saying because they had the same markings, that's where it came from. Where to me, that could just be the head of a second snake, right? Or the same snake in a different situation. Which could still mean it's saying that it came from the moon. Because he's right above the moon, right? The flying ship, which is either supposed to be the Ark Maxim, which is the ship that Emu and Skypea took to the moon, or the flying ship could also be the ancient weapon Uranus, which Emu may have modeled the Ark Maxim after. Flying ship. Yeah, okay. I see it. He is flying, man. I kind of took it. I thought it was possible because it's the same ship we see down here. Oh, actually, not quite the same. Interesting. The flying version has the things going up with the little pieces on top. 3 of them. Definitely attached to the ship. The other one doesn't. So that the other one could be the original Arc Maxim, and the second one could just be a ripoff, right? I looked at it like that was a path going to the ship, because there's that jagged line going to the ship. I saw that as a path people could walk, get on the ship, and then go off. That's how I saw it. You're saying it's flying in the air, which is I mean, you can see it that way. It's hard to tell because you could have something on the ground and something in the air in a mural, and they'd be right next to each other. Like, who the hell knows, right? I mean, that's a valid interpretation of what we're seeing here. It could be in the air. I wonder what the jagged line would be. It's motion as it came off the ground, maybe, you know, like the contrail, we might call it, you know, the little smoke that's left behind a plane after, you know, when the plane's going in the air or something. That could be what that jagged line is. We also know that the world government is trying to wipe out the Lunarians to extinction. If the Lunarians were enslaving humans, it would make sense that they hate each other. We see the flying ship point lightning at a figure who is most likely Ymir. So there's definitely conflict between these two groups. So you're interpreting the mural as one whole thing. Everything in the mural is happening in current day is kind of what you're saying. Even though we're seeing people mining and being enslaved. It's interesting because you're saying that... Where's the... okay, I see the angel. Wait, you said there was an angel observer. Yeah, wait a minute. You're saying there were flying beings were observing the slaves. Where was that? There's an angel down here at the ark with the animals going into the ark. Maybe that's what you're talking about. That must be the angel you're saying is overseeing the slaves. Maybe, maybe not. Um, we have people digging fire from the ground, and you're saying right next to that, which is talking about ancient history, is current day with Emu. Emu exists right now. So you're saying they'll talk about the present day right now and also talk about something thousands of years ago right next to each other. My interpretation is the first book, you go straight down, and every image that you see straight down from the first book relates to the first book. The second book, you go straight down, everything you see in the second book relates to the second book. So Emu couldn't exist back in the past, right? He exists now. And then the third book, same thing. With a little bit of overlap because the robot's like under the second book, but I think the second book has the least amount of imagery. Basically, just has those two arcs and Noah's Ark, because they talk about water, and that's clearly like a Noah's Ark kind of thing. And so it seems to be just that shit, and then what we interpret as fire could also be waves of ocean rising. It's possible. Those it looks like fire, but it could be water. It's possible. But for me, the way I'm interpreting this, the only real imagery that goes to the second book is the dragon with the fire breath in the wings, the creature with the possibly a crown, so maybe a monarch, the jagged line, Noah's Ark, the angel watching the animals go onto Noah's Ark. That's about all that relates to the second book, and everything else is current day. That's how I see it. Now, obviously, you see it something different. Like I said, I'm not here to shit on your theories. Like, that's not what I'm doing. I'm just seeing what you say and then saying what I think about it. But you've had years to think about this. I've had 3 days. So it's possible I'm wrong. Like, it's entirely possible I'm wrong. But it's also possible I'm new eyes. I'm seeing it from a new point of view that people just haven't considered yet. So that's the whole point. Like, you didn't want me to talk about this so I could just say, hey, everything you said is you're a genius and I agree with everything. Okay, let's move on. You wanted me to talk about this so I can say what I think. And a lot of times, like I'm not thinking the same thing you are. Marketplace of ideas, we'll eventually find out who's right and who's wrong. That's the fun of all this. But it's all love, is what I'm saying. So hopefully you don't think I'm nitpicking or shitting on your theories, because I'm not at all. Because like I said, you've had years to think about this shit. So you're probably right. I'm just saying how I see it. It is the whole Lunarian thing is very interesting, and I didn't fold any of that into this. But like I said, people have had a lot longer to think about this. It could be anybody with wings was the Lunarians, and they could definitely be a big part of this. And there's something going on with them. Like you said, they have abilities and that aren't fruit powers, which is interesting. One of the only few creatures on Earth who do. One Piece Earth. The minks kind of do. Static electricity, but still it's different. And then they can turn into a Shalong, right? So I don't think that's a fruit power. So they kind of have magic. Lunarians kind of have magic. Giants kind of have magic a little bit, and just the fact that they're so goddamn big. So there's that. I think they're also resistant to magic, aren't they? A little bit. There's definitely a conflict between the two groups, yeah. Below the Emu figure, we see a boat, which is most likely the Noah, yeah. The Noah that sits in Fishman Island right now. Underneath it, we see sets of animals, most likely due to an earlier flood of the world. I like the theory that through science in the Void Century, the mink civilization was created. Oh, so you think they were created? That would explain their powers, right? That's an interesting idea. Now, of course, because I do the thing where I think, you go straight down from the book, I think that's depicting the events of the water. What does it say here? The sea god stormed. And then there was they talked about a great flood in the past. So the sea god stormed and there was a great flood. So I think this is depicting the events that happened before the Void Century, which was the collapse of the second government. My theory is this is when, after the second government collapsed, the third government was created, and that's when Black Hoodie took power and his evil minions, right? So now evil is in charge. Every government has sucked. The first government probably had slaves, which sucks. Maybe the Lunarians were the first government. They were in charge, so they sucked. Second government, who the hell knows? Maybe it's the Giants. They do talk about the Giants kind of dominating the world. Maybe the second government had Giants and they're morons. So it was a shitty government. Maybe it was just a corrupt, ineffectual, weak government, not necessarily oppressive. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But whoever they were overthrown by a Black Hoodie, and that became the third world government. So that's what I think's going on there. If you look behind the Noah and what Emu is sitting on, the shape is similar to the elephant with Emu standing up on his trunk. My theory is that Zunisha was punished for helping lift Emu and the celestial dragons up onto the red line. Does that look like an elephant in the trunk? It does. Hey, man. Hold on. Check it out. That does look like an elephant trunk, doesn't it? I thought it was a boat because there's two oars sticking out, right? It looked like a boat. And then it just joins with the background of the Noah's Ark, right? So I thought it was a boat. They just didn't show the back half of the boat because that becomes the background. But you could totally read the entire object as being one thing, not a background, as being a big-ass elephant. Which fits with the flood, right? The waters are rising. We have a great flood. And the big-ass elephant lifts up, it's a crown. So I don't think it's a Mew because he doesn't exist right now. We're talking about before the Void Century. So we're talking about 1,000 years ago. So that's a crown of which represents the celestial dragons, right? Royalty. The people who will rule the third world government. So it's a crown, right? So the elephant lifts up the celestial dragons, puts them on top of the red line, and who does he get punished by? Somebody with a huge magic power, maybe Joy Boy. He seems to like Joy Boy, and maybe Joy Boy is the only one who can lift the curse because he's the one that gave the curse, right? I don't remember the details now about him being cursed, but I love the theory that he lifted them up and he helped the celestial dragons, which caused a whole 1,000 years of oppression. I love the idea that, because he did that, he was punished. And he's punished by Joy Boy, and only Joy Boy can lift his punishment, which means when Luffy fully becomes Joy Boy and has an encounter with the elephant again, he'll say, I forgive you, it's okay, because we know Luffy's a very forgiving person, it's all good. I'll forgive you, it's okay. And it finally lifts the curse. Give him peace, right? Because that's a very Luffy thing to do, but he's the only one who can do it. Because he's not the genetic heritage, but he is still has a heritage with the original Joy Boy. He has a mantle. He has a crown of Joy Boy. So he can lift a curse that Joy Boy gave. And so I think after the third world government was created and all this shit happened, the flood and all this shit, then the Void Century happened, and the Void Century was the government wiping away all evidence of what had happened before, because there's things that happened before that can spell their defeat, whatever it is. We don't know specifically what the information is, but they probably did a purge, a worldwide purge, where they committed genocide. They exterminated entire tribes, destroyed entire islands, destroyed books, any libraries, any colleges, any universities, killed anybody who had a lot of encyclopedic knowledge of the history, killed historians, and took firm control of the entire world for that 80 to 100 years. It just burned everything to the ground that related to the past. That was the Void Century. I think it was a 100 years of punishment and extermination of anything related to anything that happened before the Void Century, right? The past. They didn't fully take care of everything. Some books survived, some people survived, some memories survived. This is probably also, by the way, when they tried to exterminate the Lunarians. I think it all happened after the second government collapsed. The third government took charge, and then they enacted the Void Century, which makes sense because most people, I think that Black Hoodie and that current government created the Void Century, and they're definitely protecting the Void Century. They're protecting the information from the Void Century. We've seen evidence of it. So why would the second government collapse be the Void Century? The second government didn't do it. If the second government had created the Void Century, the third government wouldn't care about protecting those secrets. Right? They wouldn't care about protecting the secrets. They would only care. They'd be like, oh, they tried to eradicate history. F them. Here's the history. Hey, everybody, check it out. Here's what our prior. It'd be like whoever replaces Putin in Russia being like, hey, Putin was awesome. When the history of that country is anytime somebody new takes power, they say the old person sucks. Whoever took over from Stalin, Stalin sucks. He's not going to be like, hey, let's continue Stalin's policies. So when Black Hoodie takes over, he's not going to be like, okay, let's protect all the information that the Void Century eradicated, even though it is the second government that took out the Void, that created the Void Century. No. It would have to be the third government, Black Hoodie's government, who created the Void Century, for them to be maintaining the secrecy of the Void Century 800 years later. Right? That's why I think the Void Century happened after the events depicted in the second world. Everything that happened in the second world happened, and then you get the Void Century. Because then the third government, Black Hoodie's government, is in charge, and he can enact those policies and maintain those policies for the next 1,000 years. That's how I see it. Again, there's other readings of it, and those are equally valid, or even maybe even more valid. This is just how I see it. The tree in the middle of the mural could either be the Adam or Eve tree. Most likely the Eve tree. I agree with you because we've seen with our own eyes the Adam tree. Also, this is scraped on the Adam tree, isn't it? Or is it some other petrified tree? I'm not clear on that. It's on the tree, so why would you depict this tree on the tree? I mean, you could, or you could just say an arrow, hey, look up here. No, you would do the opposite tree, the yin and yang tree. So you're going to depict the tree that is not the one we're standing in front of right now, or nearby, or standing on, if the entire island is a tree. So I agree with you 100%. This has got to be the Eve tree that we're seeing here. Just makes sense. Due to its name, it's highly likely that the devil fruits may have originally been growing on this tree by the forest god. Another theory I've heard is that the mother flame energy was extracted from the roots. We know the roots are valuable because they produce sunlight. Yeah, I mean, that does seem to be a one-to-one connection. If the roots produce sunlight, you extract power from the roots to create a mother flame. Makes sense to me. That sounds that's interesting, and it makes sense. The dragon-looking creature sitting on top of the tree doesn't really have a good answer as of this episode. It could be a form of a muse. I've also heard people say it looks like a dragon, so it might be part of Monkey D's dragon's devil fruit power. Yeah, I think it's the, let's see, the forest god? Or what are the gods in the second world, this passage? There's a forest god who tamed demons, and the sun spread the fires of war. It could also just be the sun spreading the fires of war because he's breathing fire. Because like I said, any imagery below the second book is going to relate to what's said in the second book. So it's probably either the forest god, he's in a tree, right? There's a tree right behind him. So it could be, that's probably what it is. He's probably the forest god taming the demons with his fire. And if you look, even though he's not connected to what's happening under the first book, he could be represented as taming a demon with fire because there is a demon, the Hellfire Spirit Serpent, right across from him. They're sharing the fire, right? So you can even metaphorically, like, say there's a connection there. Okay, continued in the second comment. Everything from now on is going to be the third world part of the mural. Yeah, this is all the stuff that's under the third book passage. Wolf-looking creature may be Yamamoto. Wolf-looking creature? Who the hell is that? I don't see a wolf-looking creature. The whale could be Laboon, but that doesn't make much sense to me. I think the whale just represents sea kings, right? The sea king is the bigger of the two. I always get this confused. Sea beasts are just regular sea monsters, which is represented down here below the mermaid. Sea kings are the big ones. There must be a wolf sea king, or a wolf. There must be a whale sea king, right? So that's what I think is going on. I guess. I mean, yeah, it's a little murky. The winged figure with fire is Lunarian. Could be King from Kato's crew, or maybe the 7 warlord Sephrons. Let me see. Yeah, he's the one that's right in front of the I keep saying wolf, the whale. Yeah, I mean it could be either one. Yeah, although the Lunarians, do they have fire above their head? They have fire on them somewhere, don't they? Let me look up what a Lunarian looks like real quick. Yeah, he has a lot of these shots. He has fire behind his head. He's got to be Lunarian. It has to be. He literally has fire behind his head, right? So that's a Lunarian, I think. I'm glad you reminded me of the Lunarian thing. I completely forgot about that. It's definitely part of the lore. It's probably going to be part of the end game. It's there for a reason. I completely forgot about that. Which, again, is one of the benefits of being able to think about this shit for years, right? The robot looks like Emmett, but I actually think it could be General Frankie. He just looks like Emmett to me. I think this is something that's already happened. But yeah, I mean, if Frankie continues to add to his body, he can start looking like that. He did think the robot was cool. So, anything's possible. The Nika figure is Luffy. The boat beneath him has the alabaster flag on it, so this is likely meant to represent Vivi. That's the alabaster flag? So, that's the same symbol that's on the cover of the Harley book. That is interesting. So we're saying the Alabaster is the one family of celestial dragons who refused to go up to the Red Line. Mary Joyce or whatever it's called. They stayed down here with the rest of us unwashed masses. Their, what'd you call it? The flag. Well, I guess flag is what you're saying. Their flag is the same symbol that's the cover of the Harley book. That is fascinating. You'll see this later. When they show the cover of the Harley book in the rewind, when the hell ever I finish this Q&A, you'll get to that part. It's a 1-for-1 match of this. So that means the Nephratis or whatever, Vivi's family, this symbol means something, so they incorporated the symbol into their flag, and then whoever wrote the book incorporated the symbol into the book. I don't think one led to the other. I think they both came from the same source. Also, the Luffy figure, look at his shield. It's also the same symbol. Because the symbol shows up twice, right? So, and it also shows up on the cover of Harley's book. This symbol means something. I don't know what it means, but it means something. That's fascinating to me that you say that that's the flag of Alabaster. Interesting. The huge figure underneath it may represent Loki or the ancient giants in general. Yeah, I mean, definitely giants, right? But it could be Loki. Now, because this is all present day shit, right? So, yeah, that could definitely be Loki. I didn't think about that. Underneath the Mew, we have a boat. There are 6 people in a boat. If there were 5, we could say it represented the Gorosi, whoever the hell they are. By the way, with Vivi's boat, there is a bird on the boat, and that must be Vivi's duck, right? So Vivi and the duck are on the boat with the alabaster flag. So that actually tracks a lot. The next boat below that one also has some kind of bird-looking creature. Doesn't that look like a bird there? To the right of the sail. Let me center it a little bit more. I don't know what the thing is next to it, but that looks like a bird. He looks like a big-ass beak with bird feathers, right? I don't know what the hell that would be. Or who that is with him. It's somebody with some freaky-ass hair. And then there's some other star-shaped creature, something there. It's hard to make out. I can't see a boat with 5 people on it. But there's those 3 things. There's a boat with 1 person, a boat with 1 person, a boat with 1 person. Maybe this is the 5 people down here. I think that could be 5 people. It's hard to tell. Or you said 6, didn't you? 6 people. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I guess people are identifying some of these other little cone shapes as people. I don't know. By the way, below, just to the right of that one, remember the Native Americans or the natives or whatever that were in Skypiea? Doesn't that look like one of them? They got the headdress. And it's a different kind of boat, maybe not. It's got double sails. Do we know anybody that has double sails? That could be one of the Native Americans from Skypiea. Possibly. Like, it's all speculation, but it's very fun speculation, obviously. Oh, shit. Jesus Christ. Here it is. Here's the boat with the 6 people. Jesus. Okay. No idea who the hell they are. They have headpieces, though. They have matching headpieces. So I see why you think they're part of a group. They don't have different, like, hair, head, helmets, whatever. They're all the same, so they're all part of the same group. They kind of look like the Holy Knights. And they're facing everybody else. The Holy Knights they have, like, the cloaks and shit on top of their head that's kind of matching. And they're facing everybody else. So they seem to be opposed to everybody else. Whoever it is that's in this boat is with the big demon holding the sun ass looking dude. And they're with him opposing everybody else because the two sides are facing each other, right? They're facing everybody else. So whoever they are, they're bad news. Probably Holy Knights, I would think. Off the top of my head. Underneath the Mother Flame, what the hell's the Mother Flame? We have regular giants. So you're saying the sun he's holding as a Mother Flame, okay. Yeah, we have regular giants, and the minks, I think, here is what you're about to say. And then mermaids, and then the little people, whatever the fairies, whatever the hell they're called. So all the people are coming together. Giants, minks, mermaids, and fairies are all coming together. The animal figure next to the giants are probably the minks. Next to the minks, we have Shirarashi, and underneath her, the fish are her sea kings. So you think those are the sea kings down there? Yeah, I mean, the associate's right there with her, right? So it's literally right there. So she's bringing the Sea Kings to the battle, right? That makes sense. I thought they might be the Sea Beasts, and then the whale was the Sea King, but this actually makes more sense, I think. Because it's right there with her, and she has the power over them. So yeah, okay. Between Shirasi and the ancient giants are the Tontatia, yeah, the little people, whatever. I didn't remember their name. The rest of the ships are too generic to represent any specific thing. Do we know of a ship with 2 sails, one on top of each other? That's distinctive. You're right, the rest of them are kind of generic. But representing just various people, right? But the one with the 2 sails seems specific. I think we could probably figure that out if there's ever been a ship like that in the show. Or in the future. Because he also has a distinctive headpiece. I think it's the Skypea natives, is what I think. Because it looks almost like a Native American headpiece. And it's a different kind of sail setup as every other ship that's on the mural. So that's entirely possible. And he wraps it up, thanking me and all this stuff. I don't, hopefully, like a person reading a long passage into a video just to me gets a little tedious. So hopefully I kind of livened it up with my own speculations and wasn't too tedious. But whatever, like he said he put a lot of work into this, and I believe it. Power went out and he had to redo it and all that shit. So, again, because you said that, I just hope you don't think I'm shitting on your theories. I'm just giving my opinion. I'm pushing back on what I think's going on and all that stuff. But like I said, it's all up, right? So, like, you've had a hell of a lot more time to think about this. My thoughts are half-baked. So it's entirely possible I'm wrong about everything. It's just how I see it right now. So, you've known me long enough, you know I'm not shitting on you. And he says he wants to see what other people please feel free to add your theories or ideas about the Harley in the comments. So hopefully we get a lot to this. And I'm going to keep this as part of the Q&A with the rewind and everything. But if there's a shit ton of comments about this and other theories, feel free to write as long as you want to. Like, yeah, I just said we don't want to talk for an hour about one person's comment. But this is a special case. I'm giving you special permission if you want to leave long comments. I'll do a separate Q&A video just on the mural and the Harley. If we get a bunch of comments. If we get a shit ton of comments that are really long, I'll read them all and we'll hash it out and I'll push back on your shit. And you can push back on my shit. And we'll do it as a separate video rather than a regular Q&A rewind. This one I'm going to keep as a Q&A rewind. The rest of them we'll do if they get a bunch of comments. So feel free to leave your own comments on this one. It'd be easier if you leave it on this video than on his, simply because that way I don't have to go back to a previous video, right? So it'd be easier if you do it that way. Leave your comments on this one. Make them as long as you want. Maybe put in capital letters mural or Harley at the beginning of your comment. I will know to avoid that when I do the regular Q&A, and then I'll do a special video just on those comments. That sounds like a good way to organize it. Alrighty, well, I think that's it. Let me make sure. Yeah, I saved this comment for last. I knew it was going to be long. All right. I think we're ready for the rewind.
All right, here we go with another rewind. This is another car extravaganza. Probably going to happen next week too, because next weekend I'm going to be doing gigs in the car Saturday and Sunday, and so I'm recording this on a Friday. But still, July is a big month for gigs, so I'm doing a lot of them. So there'll be a lot of car recording. But nobody's really said how they feel about this. I don't think this really bothers anybody. I feel a little self-conscious because I do know the audio is not quite as good. Jesus, stop moving. Also, it's just, it's a little uncomfortable on my end, but it seems to work out pretty good. So it saves me a lot of time. So this, as long as nobody's like super pissed off that I'm doing it this way, we're gonna be good. All right. Anyway, this is episode 1168, and you should know I have recorded a mini pod that right now is 22 minutes long, raw footage. Now that'll edit down probably to 20 minutes long or something like that. There's also a Q&A that I've recorded most of. I didn't quite get through the whole Q&A before I had to leave. I'll finish the Q&A and then be able to release that mini pod tomorrow around the same time that this gets released. I'm going to try to time it so they both get released at the same time. The mini pod is going to cover the mural, unless there's shit that I pick up on in dialogue that's not part of the mural, but it's dialogue that in this rewind. So if I get some of this dialogue in the rewind that makes me want to add to that mini pod, I'll add more to it. I did say it during the mini pod as well. Point being, when you watch this, the mini pod will be available. I think it's going to be mini pod 12, and I'll just call it One Piece Mural or something like that. You may or may not want to, you can decide which order you want to watch this in. I recorded most of the mural, if not all of the mural commentary before I did this rewind. So maybe you want to watch that first and did the rewind to get the chronology, so my head is where it's at. But maybe you want to do the rewind because maybe I added something. So it's up to you. You can watch it in either order. But the order I recorded it was I recorded the mural. I'm doing the rewind, and if this gives me ideas about shit I want to add to the mural, I'll do that as well. So, all right, that being the case, let's go ahead and get into it. This is the first part before we get the title screen, is just replaying what we did last time. So, Ancient History of the Hartley Passed Down by Elbath. So basically, it's what's really happening in this episode is going to be the mural and the history of the book, the passages that are in the book. That's the meat and bones of the episode. But we also get the revelation about Shanks. So I think that's interesting as well. So this is a big lore episode. This might be a really long rewind. I don't time these out. I just talk until I'm done talking. That's how it works. We'll see how it times out. I like that they're showing us how much damage he took. He's suffering. The breathing, the sound design of his breathing is really good. And they're not sugarcoating how much she messed him up. And, they're showing like long, loving shots of his blood hitting the snow and all this shit. And with the sound design of his breathing, like, they messed this dude up. And so I think that, like, it serves both characters because it shows Loki will take punishment. He don't give a shit. He's stubborn. And I love that about him. He's one of my favorite characters already. I barely know him. I love stubborn characters. I love characters say, F you, I don't care what you do to me. That's just my vibe, man. That's my zone. I love that. And it also shows how far the Knights are willing to go. They're not your cuddly kittens. They're not screwing around either. So they mean business, and so does Loki. So this is a scene where both characters kind of win. Even though the Knights didn't break him, they showed how far they're willing to go to break people, and it would break most people. So I think that's interesting. He can clearly see. I wondered for a while, several episodes, if he was blind. So why is his eyes bandaged? So his eyes aren't damaged, or he wouldn't be able to see, but also how is he seeing through the bandages? So what's going on here? Is it a Daredevil situation? But he can see the hair color. Daredevil doesn't know what color your hair is. Daredevil can smell if you dyed your hair, I guess. Daredevil can hear you. He can smell you. He can, sense you, like, if you're near. He can get a feeling for your body weight and your diet and all this shit, but he cannot tell what color your hair is. This man can tell what color this guy's hair is. He may have known Shanks' hair color from reputation, but he saw this man's hair color even though he's supposed to be blind. So I'm not sure how that works. So I've still got questions. I'm just not sure if the questions have changed or not. Like, is he blind or not? And even if he's not blind, how is he seeing through the bandages to see what color the man's hair is? Like, that's just bizarre to me. Like I said, Daredevil can tell your body weight, your diet, who you had sex with last night, how heavy you are, where you are in the room. He can smell hair dye on you, but he can't tell what color your natural hair is. He has no idea. There's no way for him to tell that. There's no sensory input. You can't smell somebody's hair and see whether it's brown or blonde or red, right? So this isn't a Daredevil thing. How can this some bitch tell that the color hair is red? That's what's wild to me. It's possible red hair has a different scent, but I've never seen a scientific study on that, so I'm not sure. But I do find it very intriguing, very interesting. I think we are going to get an answer to this. We just haven't got an answer yet. It's interesting that Gunko is the first one to answer. She's like, hold your tongue, that's none of your business. But we know that her partner is actually going to reveal it, which I wonder why. Let's go ahead and advance this and see what he says. And Loki says, true. But a great pirate and a celestial dragon, anyone would wonder why two identical faces. Of course, the last that dialogue is on his face. Clearly, they're twin brothers. This is when I put it together. What really pisses me off is I predicted this last episode, and then they reveal it the very next episode. So I don't even get any glory points, no internet clout for being a master predictor, because they reveal it anyway in the next episode. Although I didn't predict twin brothers. I said they had to be in the same family. They both have red hair. They look very similar. Their eyes are similar. They could be cousins. There could be, like, sometimes ages are kind of vague with the immortality shit and magic and all this stuff. So it could be a father, a grandfather, an uncle. I just said family. I didn't predict a brother thing. But clearly something's going on here, right? So I said he's probably family. But you know what else I said? I said that'd be cliche and a little too on the nose. So I was like almost embarrassed to make the prediction, because it's kind of like in Severance. You have a woman who is married, the dead wife of the main character is Asian. Now, we don't know exactly what her ethnicity is. Like, is it like Korean? Or I don't think Korean, but like Japanese. And I think Japanese and Chinese have distinctly different kinds of faces. I'm not well versed in what that is. But I think sometimes I can tell somebody's Chinese rather than, like, whatever. But whatever it is, she's Asian, right? So his dead wife is Asian, and his dead wife, he talked about, like, the fact his wife is pregnant at one point. But then we get an 18-year-old or 15-year-old, maybe 14, character who's also Asian. Doesn't seem to be the same kind of Asian. Like I said, I'm not really well versed on the ethnicities and, like, all that stuff. Like, I can't pick out a lineup. This person's Korean, this person's Japanese, this person's Thai or whatever. I'm not, like, I can't do that. But clearly the younger girl was a different kind of Asian than the dead wife. And yet you had everybody on the internet saying, well, she's clearly the daughter of this dead wife. They're both Asian. There's only 2 Asian characters in the show, so clearly she must be Asian. She must be the daughter, right? Just because she's Asian. Which I always thought was very reductive and very stupid and borderline racist in a way. 2 characters can be the same ethnicity and not be related to each other. You don't see a movie these days, back in the day you might have, but you don't see a movie these days and think that only 2 black characters are related to each other. Sometimes it can be a clue. Sometimes you can even use that to, like, comedic effect or whatever, but most of the time that's not going to be the case. So I thought it was ridiculous that the only 2 Asian characters in a show, they had to be related to, and it turns out they weren't related to each other because the writers aren't hacks, right? That would be a hack move. Well, it'd be a hack move to have the only 2 redheads in the show be related to each other. But we just saw the only 2 pink hairs in the show be related, mother and son. And pink is a little bit different, but still, I thought it was almost like cliched and almost like a hack move. Just because they have red hair, they don't necessarily have to be related to each other, but turns out they are, so is that cliche? Is it not really nuanced? Well, we have a lot of other red hairs on the show. Also, this was probably planned out for at least 15 years, maybe longer, maybe 20, 25 years. Like, I think this Shanks reveal has been waiting in the wings for a very long time. And so when he thought about it, when he thought it up 25 years ago, we didn't have as much media as we have now. It wasn't as cliche back then. And now we're just seeing the fruits actually bear fruit. The trees are bearing fruit now, where it took 15 to 25 years for the trees to bear fruit, but they have finally borne fruit now. So I think we can forgive that. Like, I don't think this is a mortal sin of storytelling. It's just it's a little cliched, it's a little stereotype, it's a little bit, whatever. But there is the fact also, they look exactly the same in the face. Look at this son bitch. From this angle, he really looks like Shanks. Now, they were hiding his face for a lot of this, right? Which was the point. They didn't want us to look too much like Shanks too early on in the story. I wasn't too confident in my prediction because I thought it was a little cliched. A little, lacking nuance maybe. Possibly. But here we are. It is what it is. And this is with the reality of the situation. I think it's a great reveal overall. It explains a lot. It explains how Shanks got in the room with the elders. His father was in that damn room. Like, literally. I don't remember which one of the elders, I can't look at it right now, I'm in the car. I should have looked at it before I left. Which one is Fingerland? But I remember when they showed all their names, we get which one it is. He might be the one with the long nose. He's not the swordsman. He's not the guy that looks Russian. So it's one of the other two that are still alive, right? So, I don't know. I can't remember. But, I think he's the one with the long nose and the walrus mustache or whatever, the facial hair. But I'll look it up later and see which one it is. But his father was in the room. So that got him entry into the room. His father's in the room. He's an emperor, so he has power. He has clout. He has a familial connection. And with his father being in the room, there's no worry about maybe he'll attack us. He'd probably get bodied if he did. There's 5 powerful characters when he was in the room, right? So I don't think they were too worried, but that's why he got in the room to talk to him. So that explains that. It explains why he was able to stop Marineford, because on some level, besides him being an emperor, his goddamn father is one of the 5 elders. There's only 5 of them. If people know that connection, and I'm sure the admirals at least know it, they're not going to cross him easily. They have a lot more respect for him being an emperor than the other 3. He has double coupons, right? So first, he's an emperor. That's one coupon. But then he's the son of one of the elders. That's another coupon. If he wasn't an emperor, but he's the son of the elders, that gives him some clout. And he's also an emperor. So I think that explains everything we've ever wondered about Shanks as far as how he moves and operates that we've seen him do, and how can he get away with this shit, has now been answered. So this is a major revelation. And this answers a lot of questions. I don't know if everybody appreciates how many questions it actually answers, but to me it answers a hell of a lot of questions. I think that makes this a huge episode, because then we get the mural at the end of the episode. But even without the mural, this would be a massive episode. This would be with just the revelation of Shanks shatters the mythology right there, and sends you on a bunch of new theories and explains a bunch of old questions and answers a bunch of old theories, whether they're right or wrong. I wonder how many people predicted he was descended from a celestial dragon, or was a celestial dragon essentially. I don't know if anybody predicted that with Daffy. Let me know if you predicted this years ahead of time with Shanks, because I would have never seen that coming. I only thought of it last episode. And it looks like Loki's already figured it out. Loki, besides the other shit, besides the hair color, he also sees what Shanks' face looks like, and Shanks' face is identical to this guy's face. So he's figured it out. So somehow, even though he supposedly couldn't see through bandages and may or may not be blind, he knows when 2 faces are identical to each other. So that's interesting. But either way, he's made the connection. He knows immediately, okay, well, I guess, and maybe he had heard that the Fingerland has identical sons, twin sons. That's possible. But, and that would make it really easy to predict at that point. But either way, he has put it together. He doesn't need them to answer the question. He already knows the answer. Is my estranged? They pick up the wanted poster. I think this is great what they did here. That pirate is my estranged pickup wanted poster. Younger twin brother. Now, this whole younger brother crap means nothing to me. Oh, Congratulations, you were the first one pulled out of your mom's body. Congratulations. You're so much older. That doesn't mean crap. That means nothing to me. Now, I know, like, if it's a king lineage situation, and you can only have one heir to the throne, you can't have twin brothers be heir to the throne, then it matters which one was pulled out of the mom first. But other than that, if we're not talking about, who gets to sit on the Iron Throne next, then who gives a shit which one was pulled out of the mom first? You both were in the mom at the same time, and one of you got to breathe one breath of air before the other was pulled out. Big whoop. Congratulations. You're not older. Like, that's some dumbass shit. Like, every now and then you'll come across this in media where they're talking about, oh yeah, I'm the older brother. Well, you're twins. You're identical twins. What do you mean you're the older brother? Well, I'm the older brother. Bitch, you were pulled out of the mom 2 seconds before the other. You ain't older than shit. Which one of you which baby got his penis first? Which fetus in the womb got the penis first? Okay, that's the older brother. Come on, man. You're the head that happened to hit the hole first. That don't mean jack shit. But then they're gonna, oh, you're my younger. Like, I just never understood that. Like, maybe it's a Japanese culture thing, but to me, I promise you, I don't give two wet shits about which one of you was pulled out first. But he puts a lot of credence on this because he don't like the son of a bitch. Dude left home, and so he wants to make sure everybody knows, yeah, that's my younger brother, by the way. He's not my older brother. Kiss my ass. He returned to the Holy Land once. I wonder if that was when he met with the father and the other 4 elders. But apparently he prefers this filthy lower world. Well, we know this guy's an elitist prick. But yeah, we saw him meet with the elders, and I believe it was in the Holy Land, right? It was that same chamber we've always seen them meet up in. So he went back one time, and one of the things he accomplished while he was there was talking to the elders. I wonder if he had any private time with his father, and I wonder if we're ever going to get a flashback sequence like Kuma or whatever, where we get several episodes where we see everything important Shanks did in his life. That's a good question, right? Like, I don't know, but I would sure as hell love to see it. I would love to know what transpired before and after he went into what we saw when he went into the room, because that would be very interesting. And Loki's like, he returned? I see. Learning about his lineage only fuels my anger towards him. So he don't like that son of a bitch, clearly. Well, very few people do, apparently. But you cannot like somebody and still respect him, right? And I don't know about the brother, probably not, but I think Loki definitely respects him. So we got that going on. But this is all very interesting stuff. Having been through this one time and kind of knowing the reveal ahead of time, I could really hone in and focus on the dialogue. And we're getting a lot of interesting nuggets here. But for both brothers to have managed to earn my resentment, which is true, each brother has individually earned his son-bitch's resentment. That is a true statement. That's quite funny. I think so, too. I think I agreed with this sentiment in the reaction. You guys will pay for this. Yeah, he has been severely punished. So I think there's going to be some payback, some comeback on this at some point, some kind of way. Once I'm unchained, you know what will happen. Tea party? Maybe? No? I witnessed the fates of my friends. Like, they killed all of them. Every single animal came to help protect Loki, and it didn't matter. That's really sad, actually. I know they're monsters. They probably devoured a lot of innocent people, but that still sucks. And again, by the way, we have an evil person, quote-unquote evil, who cares about his minions. Kato, I think, cared about his minions. Am I right? I know Big Mom didn't really care about her children. Not really. They were just pawns. Doffy didn't care about his people. Who cared? There was a couple of these villains that cared, and I always like that when they do. I think it was Kato. I can't remember off the top of my head. It was somebody within the last 500 episodes. I remember remarking on it and talking about how great it was that they actually cared about the minions when most people don't. Whoever it was. But here's one who cares. Loki cares. These were his friends. They're not just his minions, they're his friends, and you killed them, so you're going to pay for this. And he's talking about he's going to carry them with him. I really like that a lot. I like these kind of villains that give a shit about their own people. Like, the ones who don't, the Darth Vaders and the others who just execute their people willy-nilly, it's just so cliched and so ordinary, and we've seen it a million times, and there's nothing interesting there. I want them to give a shit. Care. They don't just throw the lives away your people. Actually give a shit, and it matters when we take out one of your people. That's what I want to see. Are you threatening me? And so what if I am? Like, actually, personally, in my own life, I don't believe in threats because Here's the thing. It never works. And if you didn't do anything to the person, but something happens to them, guess who the police come to first? The person that threatened the guy. I'm going to kill you. And then they end up dead. What does that look like? Oh boy, you're screwed. Right? So threats are stupid. Either do it or don't do it. But threatening just solves nothing. So yeah, I'm kind of like, the threat is stupid. But I love the response where it's always like, oh, that's not a threat, that's a promise. And you're not trying to get anything out of him. You're telling him you killed my people and I feel bad about that. And so you're going to share how I feel later on. Right now I'm chained up, which by the way is the only reason you can beat me up. So, you know, I do wonder, going back to his blindfold, if he has like some kind of magic eyes, that his power comes from his eyes, but he can still see through a bandage. That's how powerful the magic is, but he can't use his magic unless his eyes are exposed. I'm not coming off the blindfold. The blindfold is weird. I don't understand it. And then Loki just laughs when he says, are you threatening me? And she's like, Commander, he isn't worth it. As she says, as somebody who just spent an hour kicking his ass, very dramatically, aura farming, doing spins and gymnastic moves to just kick his ass. But now he isn't worth it. I don't even need to dirty my hands with someone like them. Which means this is why you summon Cerebus and then has the heads come off and all that shit we see here coming up. Which is a very interesting attack. Let me summon this devil dog, and then the heads become guided missiles and the rest of the body vanishes, and then the heads just pierce you, right, from a distance. Even though I created the dog right in front of you. Kind of weird. It's an interesting weird-ass attack. Although he pronounced it Carabus, which is interesting. I mean, obviously, the Japanese will pronounce it differently. Okay, so here's my question. Is this a fruit power, or is this black magic? We've seen fruit powers, and I believe what we're seeing from Black Hoodie is black magic. I think it's the only other kind of magic we've ever seen that wasn't involving fruit powers, and even that could be a fruit power, we don't know. So is this a fruit power, or is this black magic? The iconography seems to be black magic. We're seeing the same black energy. Now I know we got the red tint and the red colors, but that could be like Emperor's Haki mixing with black magic, I don't know. But it seems to be coated with the same kind of black magic the elders use, and his father could have taught him this magic. So we don't know the answer to this, but I don't think this is a fruit power. Of course, I'm always wanting to see things besides fruit powers. You know this. And it always is a fruit power, you know that. But I'm holding out hope this is not a fruit power. I love this. What the hell is that? That is a very good question, my friend. What the hell is that? I mean, they tell us it's Cerebus, but what is it? Not what is his name. What is it? It's my sword. I'm thinking black magic. I know I already said this, but it's my sword. You have basically a three-headed dog sword. We need Zoro to fight this sumbitch. You know what's interesting, actually, now that I mentioned that? Zoro has three sword style, and this sumbitch has a three-headed sword. Does that mean Zoro's fated to fight this guy, and maybe this guy will kill Mihawk? So we never get the Zoro-Mihawk fight, which I must admit, I'm interested in a Zoro-Mihawk fight, but also he spent so much time learning under Mihawk that I think that takes away from it. Whereas if this guy kills Mihawk, and if Zoro defeats this guy, then Zoro is the best swordsman in the world. And then we'd have three swords against three swords. I'm placing my bets. I think that's what's going to happen. Zoro never fights Mihawk. He fights this asshole. That's what I'm predicting. They'll sense us. I wonder who she means by they'll sense us. The Giants or some group in particular? That's a good question. Commander, mask your presence. And then she says, time to move on, and she creates her aeroplane. We've already talked about this during the reaction. I won't belabor it here. God, that is funny. That is really funny. The author's an asshole. So his order is scramble. Scramble means the heads come off. And then he says come, and the rest of the body goes back into a sword. This is interesting because I think this isn't just a way to execute somebody, it's a way to terrify somebody. It's a way to scare somebody. They're trying to scare whoever it is they're killing, rather than, it's torture. They're trying to torture somebody to death, essentially, which is, I think, the purpose. It's not a quick death, it's a slow death. You get time to think about it and be horrified and be scared before you die. That's what I think the intention here is. It's not a quick death. It's somebody's pissed you off, so now you're going to take them out in a very specific, scary way. Should you survive? So it's not a sure death, I guess. If you're extremely powerful and you have restorative powers, you have healing powers or whatever, it probably won't kill you, or might not kill you. So he thinks there is a possibility this man will survive. That's interesting. Come kill me anytime. Oh, I wouldn't worry about that. I think he'll be showing up. Asshole. When you do, I'll take you on myself. Well, he's an arrogant asshole, but then again, as I've said before, he was chained up. Loki was chained up and it was 2-on-1. So you're mighty brave when that happens. And now you're going to punish him again. You're going to hit him again with another attack while he's chained up and blindfolded. So you can talk this shit about, hey, come take me and kill me anytime. I'll take you on myself. All I'm seeing right now is you're beating up on somebody who is tied up and blindfolded. So you're a bitch. That's what I'm thinking. That's all I'm getting out of this. This is quite the attack here. And they're really belaboring it. And Loki's kind of panicking, which I think is hilarious. If these things skewer me, not even I. And then he didn't finish that sentence, not even I could survive it, I assume. And then he's like, damn you, celestial dragons, damn you. And they get him. Obviously, nobody believes he's dead, but he's severely punished, and he's going to probably take a while to heal. Overrunning the Elbath quickly is going to be tough after all. Yeah, no shit. They're a warrior island. Even with everything your spy Ripley has done, the current generation can still fight. You should have waited until the next generation was in charge. We'll get the giant warrior's children first. That's going to be a tough road to hoe. Summon one more. I wonder what that means. One more holy night? Probably one more holy night. And then I guess they're going to kidnap the kids? You could interpret it several ways. Get them could be mental manipulation, PR, get them on our side. I think it's more literal. I don't think it's metaphorical. I think they're just going to kidnap them. So then we're back at the castle. I guess it's good for me to actually finally learn the name of it. Are you Roost Castle? A Roost Castle, probably. Yeah. Shanks wouldn't just beat you up without a good reason. He's so pissed. Also, big reveal. I guess the two guards aren't dead. I thought they were dead, man. I mean, obviously, it's reasonable to assume that. So why aren't the Holy Knights killing anybody? Maybe they don't believe in that. And that's a good thing. I want to know what the rules are, right? And it seems like the Holy Knights don't just indiscriminately kill people, because they clearly could have killed the two giants that were laid out. And they chose not to. They could have made sure Loki was dead. I mean, he said, should you survive, so there's a chance he could die. But they're not making sure he's dead. So they don't believe in indiscriminate murder, I guess. That's an interesting rule. We'll see if they continue to follow that rule, or if it's just, circumstantial. I don't think it takes that long to kill somebody, so it's not like they're doing that just to save time. So I don't know, but it is interesting they didn't kill him. It must have been some Shanks wannabe in disguise, which is a very clever callback to the time people pretended to be the Straw Hats. And I'm sure it's happened many other times people pretend to be other people. You don't really have TV. I mean, they kind of have it a little bit, but it's not like nightly news reports where you see what somebody looks like in 3D motion. You have the strange wanted posters. Somehow they always have a photo. We don't know how that happens, but I assume a fruit power is involved. Probably Birdhead or somebody within his staff, right? But a wanted poster, yourself, a picture is a lie, right? There's lies, damn lies, and then photographs. Pictures lie. You can take 5 pictures of the same person, they look like 5 different people if you have different angles and whatever, So it's easy to be a wannabe in this world when you don't really have concrete. This is like, nobody could pretend to be Tom Cruise in our world, because we have thousands of hours of footage of it. But somebody could pretend to be Shanks' daughter, in a bar somewhere. They saw her in a concert one time from 1,000 feet away. If she has red hair, the woman could pretend to be the daughter, and somebody could pretend to be Shanks. Not so in this case, but I think this is the kind of world where it's very easy for that to actually happen. And Zoro's spitting facts. He was here in Elbath recently, right? Yeah. Luffy believes in his people. If your story is true, that's not Shanks. So it's possible you're just a lying asshole, and even if you are telling the truth, it ain't Shanks. I don't want to hear that crap. He's much more cheerful, never bossy. You've known him for 2 hours back when you were a kid. Come on. What do you mean he's much more cheerful and never bossy? You only saw him when he was on an island. You don't know what he's like after a week in the ocean on the ship. Of course, this is another island. I'm just saying, you're making assumptions here. Yeah. First reference to Nami's pseudo-sister, I assume that's who they're talking about here, in about 1,000 episodes. You get mad too, Nami, if somebody said bad things about Molly Muir. It's Belmere. So you didn't even get the name right. Hilarious. Well, whatever her name is, you know what I'm talking about. He don't care what the name is. You see his point. That's what I'll say. I'll be like, don't worry about me mispronouncing a name or getting a name wrong. Listen to what the point I'm actually making. That's what matters. Whoever you guys saw is not Shanks. Or maybe his brother, which apparently just now occurs to me. Shanks' brother, huh? But now that I think about it, I've never heard him talk about his family. With good reason, by the way. Apparently he's been on a pirate ship since he was a kid. By the way, we got this person coming up who I think is the person they keep foreshadowing. He was at the end of the last arc. He was at the beginning of this arc. This may be the second time we've seen him walking around. But I think we're going to meet him pretty soon. Whoever the hell he is. Frankie's group, Jewel Tree Atom Tour. I talked about this during the reaction, but supply and demand, it cost him 200 million berries just to get a piece of the atom tree big enough to build a ship out of. Damn, and in that brochure earlier in that same arc where that happened, you could get an entire used ship for 200 million berries. So that's how effing expensive this wood is. Meanwhile, here you get it really cheap because this is where it all grows. You don't have to import it. Yep, you probably should start selling it, you sell-out spy asshole. At least that's my headcanon. Saul gave me a strict warning. It's a sacred tree, don't cut it down, because she was joking about selling it. She's like, a little bit won't matter. But yeah, it was probably smart of Saul to give this warning because Frankie is somebody who could use wood like this. So it's better off to let him know right up front, don't be chopping this shit down and trying to sell it. Even though you can make a ton of money if you can get it across the ocean, right? Ancient children's drawings are carved into the petrified bark. So these are ancient children's drawings. I guess they kind of look like children's drawings. When I did my study and I did the mini pod on the mural, I didn't really say this, but it kind of reminded me of hieroglyphics or ancient cave drawings, which I'm sure were done by adults. They look childish now, but they're done by adults, right? So, you know, it's all relative. What we think of childish now wouldn't be childish 4,000, 6,000, 8,000 years ago. Same thing here, but she's literally saying they're ancient children's drawings. And they're carved into the petrified bark, not drawn on there. So that's interesting. They have historical value, so they're in our national cultural heritage. I want to see them up close. You and me, buddy. You and me. And also, I want to compare this to the color version to the black and white version I studied in the mini pod. These are said to have been drawn an estimated 800 to 900 years ago. If that's correct, it'd be right around the Void Century, right? Which is after what I believe is the second extinction, the second world. He's like, the Void Century? Then I want Robin to see him. Absolutely, buddy. I gotta tell her later. It's weird given that these are Elbath paintings. I don't remember seeing this one in the wide shot. I think this is part of the second extinction, part of the mural. This one does, I think this could be one of the ships that's leaving during the second extinction. Not all the people in the paintings look like giants. Yeah, some of them look like the minks, and some of them look like regular humans. I think this is a close-up of a mink. In the history we knew, there have been wars between races, but never any cultural exchange. That's all the more reason to believe this is simply a child's dream. Well, we know that's not true. This is a giant who didn't take out his big teeth, so he still got a little bit of the heritage of the old giants. But I guess that's why they call it the Walrus School, because he looks like a walrus. I just made that connection. So he must have founded the school, or his parents look like him and he looks like his parents, and so one day one of the descendants won't look like a walrus, but it'll still be called the Walrus School. But right now, he looks like a walrus and it's called a Walrus School. But also, he's not paying attention to the kids, which I think is going to be a problem here in a minute. So this is a symbol we see twice in the mural. We see it once on the sail of a ship, and we also see it on the shield of what looks like probably Joy Boy or somebody like that, some real powerful celestial type entity. I think they had wings and stuff like that. So this is an important symbol. It must mean, I thought when I saw the symbol on the mural that it was the sun with all the planets of the solar system surrounding it, which, you know, right here shows 8 planets, which we don't know how many planets are in this solar system. We know how many planets are in our solar system, but not this one. So I thought it was a sun with planets, but now clearly it's the tree. It's the tree kind of with some sun imagery. Kind of like you're saying the tree of Adam is kind of akin to the sun, life giver. The sun is a life giver. The tree is a life giver. So I think that's what we're doing here. But I didn't realize the cover of the book is also, we can see that same symbol in the mural twice. And this is apparently called the Harley, this text. From this text, various myths and stories were created in Elbath. The interpretations vary widely. I'm sure the interpretations vary widely among the fan base as well. That's why every Elbath warrior has a completely different idea. Look at Chopper's eyes. He's not even the historian. You know, Robin's eyes are normal. Chopper's eyes are very excited about what the sun god is like. I think, by the way, my interpretation, you'll see in the mini-pod and other places, the sun god is everything. He's a many-faced god. He is destruction and dominion and liberation and everything all enrolled in one. Plus, destruction is not destruction of the world, it's destruction of the world government. There's a difference. But if you're part of the world government, it is destruction. There's no other interpretation. If you're not part of the world government, then it's not. Like, it's liberation. Same thing, it depends on your perspective. So depending on your perspective is which of these variations you believe the sun god is. So you see Colin is here, right? Which means he's not at the school, which means whatever's going to happen to the kids at the school is not going to happen to him. He'll be the one child who is not kidnapped, which means he'll be part of the rescue force, which is why we've been following him all this time. He's like the guest star of the story arc, because he's the only one who doesn't get kidnapped. He doesn't get kidnapped because he's here at the banquet instead, which, hell, I'd rather be at a banquet at school, I'll tell you that much. She's right. Yes, it's quite interesting. I agree. 100% quite interesting. Right, okay. I've said this like this was a grand revelation in reading the mural. They said it in the damn episode. I didn't remember that. It's a story of 3 chapters, and the 3rd chapter is about the world we live in today. I didn't remember that, but I was like, oh my God, I'm so smart for figuring this out. No, they said in the goddamn episode. So, you know, I'm a dumbass. But, yeah, I was acting like I was on to something. They already revealed it. But, yeah, that's the conclusion I came to as well. Meaning it's about what's to come, which is why I said I acted like I was a genius when I came to this conclusion. They said it in the damn episode. I can't believe they said it in the episode. I didn't remember that at all. I mean, it's been several days since I've seen the episode. But, yeah, I was acting like I was really onto something there in the mini-pod. In particular, the legends of Nika actually exist secretly all over the world. And what they all have in common is that he appears with the rhythm like this, laughing out loud. Well, we know this part. Now, I talk about this text because the text is on the mural. I talk about this text in great detail during the mini-pod, so I'm not going to spend any time on it here. Go check out the mini-pod for that. But it's very interesting and very well written. It takes several readings to really grasp what they're talking about. I think the pictures also help. The pictures help the context, and the text helps the pictures. So it's a cyclical arrangement, right? But yeah, I've already talked about this at length. We are getting a few close-ups here. Yeah, this is pretty much what I've seen. As far as this being colored, they're trying to keep it black and white as much as possible. They don't want to give more away in color than they had in black and white. So that's disappointing. I couldn't remember the colors. So I don't think we're going to get anything extra out of the colors. Also, I think this just confirmed my theory in the mini-pod that the mural is 3 parts. Each part of the mural is talking about one of these chapters, rather than the whole mural being about everything, right? They just showed us the first third of the mural talking about the first chapter. So that theory was correct, it seems. You can see, by the way, the shield here looks exactly like the cover of the book. It could just, I mean, I've seen shields with that design before, but I don't think it's a coincidence. And here's a full mural, very lit up, a lot harder to see this than it was in the manga. Actually, I thought it'd be easier to see with colors, but with the fire, it's a lot harder to see. A little bit better, you got a little bit more contrast here, but still a lot harder to see it than it was in the manga. That's a wrap. Well, like I said, a bunch of supplementary material in the mini-pod. I'm going to record a little bit just to add to the end of that, and then we'll be ready to move on to the next chapter. In the history of the book, the passages are in the book, all that kind of lore. That's the meat and bones of the episode. But we also get the revelation about